let's just put it this way. I would stay in a loveless marriage just to make sure I could be with Lena every day.
For more than 2 decades, Kelly Ripa has walked into American living rooms every weekday morning with the same bright energy, the same quick wit, and the same reassuring warmth that made her one of daytime television's most trusted faces. Now 55 years old, she has spent the majority of her adult life performing that consistency on live television, and to viewers she can seem almost immune to the ordinary wear of time and pressure. But a closer look at Kelly Ripa's career reveals something far more complicated than a woman who simply got lucky and stayed likable. Behind the laughter is a story about what it costs to build an identity around being endlessly available, endlessly cheerful, and endlessly watched, and about how even a woman at the top of her industry can find herself with less control over her own career than most people would assume. Kelly Ripa's story begins far from any television studio, in the working-class town of Stratford, New Jersey, where she was born in October 1970 to a bus driver and a homemaker. She was not handed a path into show business. She built one through years of ballet lessons, piano practice, and a drama teacher at Eastern Regional High School who recognized something in her and pushed her to take performing seriously. She briefly studied at Camden County College before deciding, against the safer instincts of a working-class upbringing, to leave for New York and chase acting full-time. Her earliest jobs were unglamorous by any standard. She danced on programs like Dancin' on Air and Dance Party USA long before anyone knew her name, but those years taught her how to move naturally in front of a camera and how to keep her energy up even when the work was repetitive and exhausting. It was training that, without her realizing it at the time, was preparing her for a career that would eventually demand exactly those skills on a much larger stage. Her real breakthrough came in 1990, when she was cast as Haley Vaughn on the ABC soap opera All My Children, a role she would hold for 12 years. Soap opera work is often dismissed by outsiders as less demanding than other forms of acting, but the reality is grueling: long days, dense dialogue memorized on tight turnaround, and emotionally heavy scenes shot at a pace few other genres require. Kelly thrived in that environment, earning multiple Daytime Emmy nominations along the way, and the discipline she developed there, showing up prepared, staying emotionally present take after take, hitting marks under pressure, became the foundation for everything that followed. It was also on that set that she met actor Mark Consuelos, who played her on-screen love interest, and their relationship moved from the show into real life. The two married in 1996 and went on to raise 3 children together, building a family life that would later become inseparable from Kelly's public persona in ways neither of them could have fully anticipated. The turning point that made Kelly a household name arrived in 2001, when she was chosen to replace Kathy Lee Gifford alongside Regis Philbin on the nationally syndicated morning show that would eventually bear her name. Live television is a different kind of demanding than scripted soap opera work. There is no retake, no editing room to soften an awkward moment, and no script to fall back on when a conversation goes somewhere unexpected. Kelly had to learn to think on her feet in real time, every single morning, while still projecting warmth and consistency for viewers who were tuning in specifically because they felt they knew her. Over the following decade, she built exactly that kind of trust with audiences, and by the time Philbin retired in 2011, she had become the show's clear anchor, with football star-turned-broadcaster Michael Strahan stepping in as her new co-host. It was the ending of that partnership with Strahan, in 2016, that first exposed how little control Kelly actually had over decisions affecting her own career, despite being the face most associated with the show. Strahan's move to Good Morning America was negotiated and finalized largely behind the scenes, and Kelly has since said she learned the news only shortly before it became public, leaving her blindsided by a decision that reshaped the program she had spent years building. She took a brief break from the show afterward, and when she returned, she addressed the situation directly on air, speaking about communication and respect in the workplace rather than pretending nothing had happened. It was a rare moment when the usual polish of daytime television slipped, and viewers got a glimpse of a woman managing real professional hurt in front of an audience that expected her to simply move on and keep smiling. The months that followed brought a rotating cast of guest hosts as producers searched for a permanent replacement, and Kelly had to build on-air chemistry with a new personality nearly every week while still delivering the same spontaneous energy her viewers had come to rely on. Ryan Seacrest eventually took the seat permanently in 2017, bringing a period of relative stability, but the experience with Strahan's departure had already made clear that visibility and authority are not the same thing, even for someone as central to a show's identity as Kelly had become. Running alongside these professional upheavals has been a much more personal and, in some ways, more relentless form of pressure, the scrutiny directed at her appearance and her aging. Kelly has always had a notably small frame, and over the years that has drawn everything from casual commentary to outright speculation about her health, regardless of how openly she has discussed her approach to exercise and diet. It is a pattern common to women in television broadly, where normal signs of aging or fatigue get treated less as biology and more as evidence to be picked apart, and where the same openness that builds a connection with viewers can just as easily become ammunition for critics. Kelly has spoken candidly in interviews about the toll this takes, describing real anxiety tied to the unrelenting nature of being evaluated, not just for her performance on the show but for how she looks doing it. That contrast between the confident, joke-ready woman viewers see each morning and the private effort required to maintain that composure is one of the more sobering threads running through her decades in the public eye. Kelly's marriage has been both a source of genuine strength and another arena where the boundaries between her private and professional life have steadily eroded. She and Mark Consuelos built a partnership that survived years of demanding, often conflicting schedules, and she has spoken about their relationship with real affection on air, sharing stories about parenting and daily life that made her feel more relatable to audiences. But that same openness meant her marriage became, in effect, part of the show's content, something for viewers and tabloids alike to analyze for cracks or confirmation of happiness. The dynamic shifted again in 2023, when Mark officially joined her as co-host, merging their personal and professional lives more completely than at any previous point in their relationship. Working alongside her husband every morning has brought an obvious comfort and an easy chemistry that comes from decades of history together, but it has also meant that disagreements or tense moments that once would have stayed at home now unfold, at least partially, in front of a national audience. Kelly has had to learn to manage that blended dynamic in real time, using humor to diffuse tension the same way she has throughout her career, all while facing occasional criticism that the show leans too heavily on their marriage as a selling point. As her children grew older and eventually moved out on their own, Kelly experienced another layer of change that she chose, as she often does, to process partly in public. She has spoken on air about the quieter, more bittersweet feelings that come with an empty nest, discussing the shift with the same candor she has applied to menopause, sleep struggles, and body image over the years. That willingness to speak openly about experiences many women go through privately has helped normalize conversations that used to stay behind closed doors, and it is part of why so many viewers feel a genuine connection to her rather than viewing her as a distant celebrity. But every disclosure also invites a new round of interpretation from people who were never given the full context, and Kelly has effectively spent her career managing a constant, moving line between authenticity and self-protection, deciding in real time how much of her private life is safe to share and how much needs to stay hers alone. There is also a professional pressure that rarely gets discussed directly but shapes nearly everything about how Kelly approaches her job, the sheer unforgivingness of live television as a format. A scripted actress gets another take. A podcast host can edit out a stumble. Kelly, for more than 2 decades, has had almost none of that safety net. Every awkward pause, every guest who goes off script, every piece of news that breaks moments before she walks on set has to be absorbed and turned into something watchable in real time, without the benefit of reflection. That constant demand for instant recovery is its own form of labor, one that looks effortless specifically because Kelly has spent so many years making it look that way. It is worth remembering that the skill audiences enjoy every morning, her ability to turn a tense or embarrassing moment into a laugh line before viewers even register the discomfort, was not something she was simply born with. It was built, take by take and broadcast by broadcast, out of exactly the kind of professional uncertainty that defined moments like the Strahan departure and the years of guest hosts that followed. The media landscape Kelly has had to navigate has also shifted dramatically underneath her over the course of her career, adding yet another layer to what she has had to manage. When she first took over as a full-time host in 2001, the competition for attention came mostly from other network programming operating on similar daily rhythms. Today, she is measured against an environment of podcasts, streaming platforms, and social media personalities who can post constantly and adjust instantly to whatever is trending. Staying relevant in that kind of landscape while still delivering the familiar, comforting rhythm that loyal viewers expect from her show requires a very particular kind of adaptability, one that doesn't get the same recognition as reinventing an entire format, but that demands nearly as much ongoing effort. Few hosts have managed to hold an audience's trust across that many changes in how media gets consumed, and doing so has meant Kelly rarely gets to simply repeat what has worked before. She has had to keep recalibrating, year after year, while never letting viewers see the recalibration happening. What emerges from all of this is not a story of a woman who has been broken by fame, but one of a woman who has had to develop an unusual kind of endurance simply to keep doing her job well for more than 2 decades. Kelly Ripa's resume, on paper, is a study in consistency, a 12-year run on a major soap opera, a seamless transition into live hosting, more than 20 years anchoring one of the most recognizable shows in daytime television, and a marriage that has outlasted the usual pressures placed on celebrity relationships. But underneath that consistency is a long series of adjustments most viewers never see, learning that being essential to a show doesn't guarantee a say in its decisions, learning to absorb public commentary about her body and her age without letting it show on camera, and learning to protect a marriage and a family life that had, gradually and almost without her choosing it, become part of the product she sells every morning. There is a particular kind of loneliness, too, in being the one constant in a workplace where nearly everything else keeps changing. Co-hosts have come and gone across her tenure: Regis Philbin's retirement, Strahan's exit, the rotating guest hosts, Seacrest's eventual departure years later, and finally Mark stepping into the role, and through every one of those transitions, Kelly has been the person left to steady the show for viewers while also, privately, adjusting to a new professional relationship each time. That kind of repeated adjustment asks something specific of a person, the willingness to build trust and rhythm with a new partner again and again, knowing that arrangement, too, might eventually change. Longevity in an industry like hers is often described as a triumph, and in many ways it is, but it also means Kelly has absorbed more transitions and more uncertainty than almost anyone else on her own show, simply by virtue of being the one who stayed. At 55, Kelly Ripa is still doing the job that first made her famous in her early 30s, still finding ways to turn discomfort into a joke rather than letting it sit heavy in front of the camera. That skill, more than any single controversy or headline from her career, may be the clearest evidence of what her success has actually required. It is easy to watch someone deliver decades of effortless-seeming charm and assume the charm itself is the whole story. Kelly Ripa's career suggests otherwise, that lasting visibility in an industry built on youth and novelty is rarely just talent sustaining itself, but talent paired with a quiet, ongoing willingness to absorb pressure that audiences are never meant to notice. Her story is less a tragedy in the dramatic sense and more a reminder of something less often discussed, that even the most familiar, reassuring faces on our screens are carrying weight that has nothing to do with what they're paid to perform, and that staying in the spotlight for as long as she has is its own kind of quiet endurance test, one she has been passing, morning after morning, for more than 20 years.